when the future becomes an invisible prison. There's something strange that almost no one notices. We don't live in the present. We live in a virtual world constructed by memory and imagination. A world where the past constantly pulls us backward and the future constantly promises forward. Between these two forces, the present, the only thing that actually exists, becomes an empty space we hurriedly skip through. Have you ever truly been here? Not here with thoughts about what you're doing, not here with plans for the next moment, but actually here in this moment, with this breath, with this light. If you observe carefully, you'll see that the mind is always somewhere else. It's always running to the past to regret, to reminisce, to analyze, or running to the future to worry, to hope, to plan. And in that escape, something strange happens. The future, something that has never existed, becomes the most powerful force controlling your life. It's not an open possibility, but a rigid template you try to cram reality into. This article isn't here to teach you to live in the present in the conventional sense, a beautiful slogan people often repeat without understanding. Instead, it invites you to look directly at the mechanism of escape, to see clearly why the mind always runs, where it runs to, and what happens when that running stops. The future never arrives. Observe something simple. The future never arrives. You can think about tomorrow, next week, next year, but when they come, they're always the present. You never live in the future. You only live in the present with thoughts about the future. But the mind doesn't see this. It believes the future is a real moment that will arrive, somewhere it can reach. And so it spends all its energy preparing for that moment, worrying about what might happen, expecting what will come, planning to control what hasn't occurred. But if you look closely, you'll see that the future isn't a reality. It's just an image in the mind, a projection of memory onto a blank screen. You imagine tomorrow based on what happened yesterday. You hope the future will be better based on what you feel is lacking in the present. You fear the future will be worse based on what you've experienced in the past. So the future isn't a discovery, but a repetition. It's not an open possibility, but a script already written by the past. For example, you worry about a meeting tomorrow. But if you observe, you'll see this worry doesn't come from the meeting. It comes from memories of previous meetings, from the fear of being judged, from the self-image you want to maintain. The mind takes fragments from the past, pieces them together, and calls it the future. And when the future arrives, when tomorrow becomes today, you're not there again. You're already thinking about another future. In the meeting, you're not really listening. You're thinking about what you should say next, about what others think of you. You're never truly in the unfolding moment. So the future isn't a destination. It's an escape mechanism, a way for the mind to avoid the present, to avoid what is. Why does the mind always run? If the present is the only thing that truly exists, why does the mind always run from it? The answer lies in the nature of the ego. The ego, the I, cannot exist in the present. It can only exist in time. It needs the past to construct a self-image. I am this way because I experienced those things. It needs the future to maintain meaning. I'm doing this to achieve that. Without past and future, the ego has nothing to cling to. In the pure present, when there's no memory, no expectation, no comparison, the ego dissolves. And that's exactly what it fears most. So it constantly creates movement, always pulling you to the past or pushing you to the future. Observe this in yourself. When you sit still, doing nothing, what happens? The mind becomes restless. It starts thinking about what needs to be done, who needs to be met, what problems need solving. It can't simply be here. It needs a task, a goal, a direction. And when there's no real task, it creates a phantom task. It starts worrying about things that might happen or reminiscing about things that did happen. It creates problems in the mind just to have something to solve. Because without problems, without conflict, without movement, the ego has no reason to exist. Here's something strange. The mind doesn't want peace. It wants movement. It wants conflict. Because it's in that very movement that it feels alive, existing, meaningful. But if you look deeper, you'll see that this very movement is the source of suffering. When the mind is always running, always comparing the present with the past, always measuring the present against the future, it can never rest. It always feels lacking, always feels insufficient. When the future becomes chains, there's a deep belief in the human mind. The future will be better than the present. If I work harder, if I make more money, if I find the right person, if I achieve that goal, then I'll be happy. This belief sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But if you observe carefully, you'll see that this very belief is the source of unhappiness. When you believe happiness lies in the future, you automatically create a gap between present me and ideal me. And that gap is suffering. You can't be happy right now because you've decided happiness can only come when you achieve something in the future. But look at your life. How many times have you thought, when I achieve this, I'll be happy? And how many times upon achieving it, did you find that happiness didn't arrive as expected? Maybe you felt joy for a short time, but then the mind created a new goal, a new lack. This isn't a problem of setting the wrong goals. It's a problem of the mechanism itself. The mind cannot find happiness in the future because when the future arrives, it becomes the present, and the mind doesn't want to be in the present. It creates a new future to run toward. So the future isn't a promise of liberation. It's a trap. It keeps you in a state of perpetual postponement, always waiting, always hoping, always preparing, but never truly living. And what's more frightening, when you live for the future, you sacrifice the present. You do things you don't want to do because you think they'll lead to a better future. You postpone what you truly want to do because you think it's not time yet, that you need more preparation. But that condition never arrives. That future never arrives. And one day you look back and see, you spent your entire life preparing for a life you never lived. The past is not the cause. If the future is an illusion, so is the past. Not that events didn't happen, they did. But the meaning you assign to them, how you remember them, how you let them shape the present, all of that is a construction of the mind. There's a common belief. I am this way because I experienced those things. I'm anxious because I was betrayed. I don't trust because I was hurt. The past becomes the explanation for every limitation in the present. But if you observe carefully, you'll see the past isn't the cause. The past is just a memory, and memory only has power when you continue to feed it in the present. For example, you were betrayed by someone. That event happened in the past. It no longer exists in reality. But every time you meet someone new, the mind pulls up that memory and says, be careful, this could happen again. And from there, you see the new person through the lens of the past. You don't see them as they are. You see them as a potential version of the person who betrayed you. So it's not the past affecting the present. It's you bringing the past into the present. You're giving it life, giving it power, giving it the ability to shape how you see and react. When you live from the past, you never truly meet reality. You only meet your memories. You don't see the person in front of you. You see the image you project onto them. You don't experience this moment. You experience the comparison between this moment and previous moments. In that state, how can anything new happen? How can there be transformation? You're just repeating old patterns, old reactions, old limitations. And you call it personality, nature, who I am. But actually, that's not you. It's just a collection of memories repeated, so often you mistake them for yourself. Psychological time and clock time. There are two kinds of time. One is clock time, time on the watch, time to go from point A to point B, time to learn a skill, to complete a task. This is necessary time, and no one denies its existence. But there's another kind of time, psychological time. This is the time of the ego, the time of desire and fear, the time of I will become, and I used to be. This is the time where you compare, where you measure, where you create distance between what is and what should be. Psychological time doesn't actually exist. It's just a structure in the mind, a way for the ego to maintain its continuity. When you say, I will become better, you're creating a gap between present me and future me. And in that gap, the ego exists as an unfinished project, as a story being told. But if you look closely, you'll see that future me never arrives. When tomorrow comes, it's today, and I still feel not good enough, still need to become even better. So psychological time isn't a path leading somewhere. It's a loop, a self-sustaining mechanism of the ego. And here's what's important. Most human suffering comes from psychological time. When you worry, you're living in an imagined future. When you regret, you're living in a past that no longer exists. When you feel insufficient, you're comparing the present with an ideal image. All are movements of psychological time. But in the pure present, when there's no comparison, no expectation, no memory interfering, psychological time dissolves. And with it, suffering also dissolves. Not that problems are solved, but that problems no longer exist. Seeing ends time. So how do you escape psychological time? How do you live in the present without being imprisoned by past and future? The answer doesn't lie in a method or technique. It lies in seeing, a direct seeing of how psychological time operates in you. When you see clearly that the future is just an image in the mind, it loses its power. When you see clearly that the past only has strength when you continue to feed it, it no longer shapes the present. When you see clearly that the ego needs time to exist, you're no longer fooled by it. But this seeing isn't intellectual understanding. You can read about it, you can understand it logically, but that doesn't change anything. True seeing only happens when you observe directly. When you see the mind running to the future, when you see it pulling the past into the present, when you see it creating distance between what is and what should be. And this observation isn't a doing. It's not an effort. It's simply attention. Attention without purpose, without an observer separate from what's observed. When that attention is present, psychological time dissolves by itself. Try it right now. Sit still, doing nothing. Observe the mind. Where is it? Is it here in this moment? Or is it wandering, thinking about what needs to be done, who needs to be met, what problems need solving? When you see it wandering, don't try to pull it back. Just see. See that it's running. See that it can't be still. See that it always needs something to cling to. In that seeing, without judgment, without trying to change, something strange happens. The mind becomes quiet by itself. It's not that you make it quiet, but when it's seen clearly, it stops by itself. And in that silence, the present opens up, not as a concept, but as a living reality. Living from empty space, when psychological time dissolves, a completely different space appears. This isn't a special state or a mystical experience. It's simply life as it is, not through the lens of memory, not through the filter of desire. In this space, you no longer ask, what will I become? Or who is I? Those questions lose meaning because they all belong to psychological time. Instead, there's just a presence, without name, without form, without story. This isn't a passive or numb state, as many fear. On the contrary, it's the most alive, most alert state. When the mind is no longer pulled to the past or pushed to the future, all its energy concentrates in the present. And in that concentration, everything becomes clear. Not clear in the sense that you understand more, but clear in the sense that you see things as they are undistorted by thought. Action from this space is completely different from action from psychological time. When you act from time, you always have a motive, a purpose, a desire to achieve something, a fear to avoid something. That action always carries tension, always creates conflict. But when you act from the pure present, that action is no longer personal. It doesn't come from I want or I must, but from a clear perception of what's needed in the situation. It's like how a tree responds to sunlight. without planning, without purpose, just a natural response to reality. When goals are no longer chains, there's a common misunderstanding about living in the present. Many people think it means abandoning all goals, all plans, all ambitions. But that's not what's being said here. The problem isn't whether or not you have goals. The problem is your relationship with those goals. When you live from psychological time, goals become a means to escape the present. You're not satisfied with what is, so you create an image of what should be and call it a goal. And from there, the present becomes an obstacle, something to overcome to reach the ideal future. But when you live from the present, goals have a completely different quality. They're no longer a means of escape, but a natural expression of life, like a river flowing to the sea. Not because it wants to escape the mountain, but because that's its nature. The flowing and the destination aren't separate. Each moment of flowing is complete in itself. When you act from this space, you can have goals, plans, ambitions, but they no longer imprison you. You don't sacrifice the present for the future. Instead, action and goal become one. You do what needs to be done not because it leads somewhere, but because it's the right thing in this moment. And something strange happens. When you no longer cling to goals, when you no longer fear failure or crave success, your action becomes far more effective. Because it's no longer contaminated by worry, by desire, by fear. It becomes a pure response to reality. Relationships are no longer battlefields. One of the places psychological time causes the most suffering is in relationships. Observe how you relate to others, especially those close to you. Do you truly meet them? Or are you meeting your image of them? An image built from the past, from what they've said, done, from how they made you feel. When you look at someone you love, do you see them as they are in this moment? Or are you looking through a veil of memory? Expectations, disappointments, images of how they should be? This is why most relationships become battlefields. It's not two real people meeting each other, but two sets of images colliding. You have an image of yourself, an image of the other person, and an image of how the relationship should be. When reality doesn't match these images, conflict arises. You feel disappointed, hurt, angry. You try to change the other person to fit your image. But all of this happens in psychological time. They used to be this way, they should become that way. Past and future constantly interfere with the present. And in that interference, true meeting never happens. Try this. Next time you meet someone close, look at them as if you've never met them before. Don't carry what you know about them, what you expect from them. Just look without judgment, without comparison, without analysis. What happens when you do this? You might see that person is completely different from the image you have of them. You might see aspects you never noticed before because previously you always looked through the veil of memory. And something more miraculous. When you no longer impose images on them, they also begin to change. Not that they become someone else, but they're free to be themselves, alive, fresh, not bound by the past. This is true love, not love as an emotion, as an attachment, as a need. But love is a state without images, without desire, without fear. In this love, there's no time, only a presence, complete, unconditional, not divided by past and future. Practice. What's written above isn't theory for you to believe or memorize. It only has meaning when you discover it yourself, not through thinking, but through direct observation. Below are 4 exercises to begin this journey of observation. Exercise 1. Observe the escape. Week 1. Each day, choose 3 to 4 random moments, while eating breakfast, while commuting, while talking to someone. In those moments, stop and ask, where's my mind right now? Is it here, in this moment? Or is it in the past or future? Don't try to change anything. Don't judge. Just observe and note. The mind is thinking about tomorrow's meeting, or the mind is remembering yesterday's argument. You'll see that most of the time, the mind isn't in the present. Seeing this clearly, not as a problem to fix, but as a truth to recognize, is the first step. Exercise 2. Find a root of time, week 2. When you catch the mind running to the future, worrying, expecting, planning, stop and ask, what am I trying to achieve in the future? What do I feel is lacking in the present? If I achieve that, how do I think I'll feel? When you catch the mind running to the past, ask, what am I seeking in the past? What am I trying to avoid in the present? You'll begin to see that behind every escape is a fear or a desire. Don't try to eliminate them. Just see them. When they're seen clearly, they begin to lose their power. Exercise 3. One day without a future, weeks 3 to 4. Choose one day, ideally a weekend, and live as if there's no future. On this day, don't plan anything beyond the next hour. Don't think about what you should do later. When the mind starts worrying about the future, gently remind, not now, only now. Do what needs to be done in this moment, not because it leads somewhere, but because it needs doing. For example, if you're washing dishes, just wash dishes. Don't think about what you'll do after finishing. Just be there with the water, with the dishes, with the movement of your hands. At first, you might feel restless, anxious. Just observe this agitation. See that it comes from habit, from fear, not from actual need. Exercise 4. The fundamental question, ongoing. In quiet moments, morning upon waking, or evening before sleep, sit still and ask, if there's no past, no future, no story of me, what is here? Don't seek the answer through thinking. Don't try to imagine or visualize. Just ask and stay with the question. Let the question open a space without words, without concepts. In that space, there might be silence. There might be emptiness. Don't fear it. Don't rush to fill it with thoughts. Just be there. This isn't meditation in the conventional sense. You're not trying to achieve a state. You're just exploring. When psychological time dissolves, what remains? Conclusion. Returning to what's always here. We began with a question. Why don't we live in the present? And through the journey of observation, we've seen it's not a problem to solve, but a mechanism to see clearly. The mind escapes the present because the ego cannot exist in the present. It needs the past to build a self-image, needs the future to maintain meaning. And in that escape, we create an invisible prison, a prison without bars, without walls, but still imprisoning us completely. But the door of this prison is never locked. It's always open. We just don't see it because we're too busy running to the past, running to the future, running anywhere except where we're standing. Living in the present isn't an achievement. It's not something you attain after years of practice. It's simply the cessation of escape, the cessation of psychological time. And when that escape stops, you'll see something strange. The present is always here. It never went anywhere. It's just that you weren't here. You were always somewhere else, in memory, in imagination, in desire, in fear. But now, in this moment, as you read these lines, you can stop. Not stop to do something, but simply stop. Stop the escape. Stop the seeking. Stop even trying to live in the present. Just be here, with this breath, with this sound, with this light. Nothing more needed. No need to become anything else. Because you've always been enough. Not enough in the sense that you're perfect, but enough in the sense that you're complete. This completeness isn't an achievement. It's the nature of life when not fragmented by psychological time. And from that completeness, a completely different way of living begins. A way that's no longer a struggle, a race, a chain of goals to achieve, but a flowing, like a river flowing to the sea, unhurried but unceasing, without purpose but full of meaning. This isn't the end of an article. This is an invitation into a journey that goes nowhere because the destination is always right here, in this step, in this breath, in this eternal moment. Are you ready to stop?